This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. The following Care Lab podcast does not provide health or medical advice. All content is provided for information purposes only. Listeners are encouraged to speak with their healthcare provider for specific healthcare advice and are wholly responsible for the outcome of implementing any tips or information presented.
Hi, welcome to Care Lab. Yay, Care Lab Day.
It's Care Lab Day. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, first, I just want you to notice that I'm obviously in my closet again.
Yes.
But the setup has continued to improve.
That's good. You got to have option A and option B.
Yeah. I'm in my closet because my oldest has a tummy bug, which is the worst. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So it's just like the worst kind of sick. But in true OT fashion, in like 10 minutes, I improved my closet recording situation using power tools, sewing materials,
yes,
and an umbrella.
Did you know that OTs, this is like a prerequisite for OTs, you got to be able to use tools and you got to be able to sew.
You basically have to be MacGyver. And if anyone can guess how exactly I used power tools, a needle and thread, and an umbrella to make my situation better, including the lighting, which I am not nearly so blindingly white this time, I will send you a prize. I'll send you a Care Lab. I'll send you a Care Lab prize if you can figure it out. So take your guesses, leave them in the comments.
Okay, good. I have some guesses, but I will let the people guess so they can get whatever this awesome prize is.
Yeah, like you're not eligible for the prize. It's like, if you work for a company that's giving the prize, they make you sign a little thing. It's in the disclaimer. If you work for Frito-Lay and Frito-Lay is giving out a prize, you can't get the prize.
Fair. Facts. But good job.
Thanks. So I thought that the fact that I'm home today caring for a sick kid and also trying to accomplish work brought up kind of a convenient time to talk about how do you work when you are actively caring for someone? Like, how do we get this done, right?
Do we have answers for this?
Yeah, I won't lie. I don't think we have all the answers for this. I don't think anyone has all the answers for this, but I think that we can, just talk. And this isn't even like an occupational therapy discussion. This is just like, let's be human beings who have been in these situations and talk about what we do to make this work when we can make this work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. I think this is worthwhile to talk about. Like, the reason I said, do we have any answers, is because I struggle with this all the time. But the one thing that I think has been helpful to me is to set realistic expectations. So, I'm not caring for parents or older adults at the moment. I'm caring for babies, little kids. And when they were a little bit younger, for example, my youngest is 2. And when she was a baby and she was like 1, I had, people do not know this, but I had many, many video calls while I was breastfeeding that kid, just below the video screen. And I planned it that way because she would be quiet and I could have the call and then, go on about her day. So that was like a realistic expectation. And, we had a cadence to things. She slept more because she's a baby. The other 2 would go to school or daycare. And so like that was manageable. This summer, I think I thought I could do similar things, but now this kid is 2. She's not breastfeeding. She's running around like a maniac, and her siblings are doing the same. And so the amount of work that I thought I could get done and have them be at home was not the same. And I was really frustrated about it. And I just was like, I just have to be more realistic about this. Like, if I'm going to be here with them, I have to choose wisely what tasks I feel like I can accomplish and how many of them I actually can accomplish, and then just set it at that and let it be that. And then do whatever else on the other days.
Yeah, I think that that's probably the best advice is like have reasonable expectations and then set priorities with those. I know I always wake up with a list at least like 10 or 12 deep of important tasks that I would love to have done during a day. But the fact is, realistically, if I can truly accomplish like two of those things,
Mm-hmm.
that's not only like more reasonable for me to expect of myself to get that done, but I also do better quality work on those two things, and those two things get completed, right? As
Yes.
opposed to trying to get through, be like Wonder Woman and get through 10 or 12 tasks in a day, where maybe I'm not putting in my best effort, or the task is really only partially getting done, so I'm just kicking the can down the road. And
Right.
that's not helpful personally for my stress level if I'm doing that, because I
Exactly.
haven't I haven't actually checked anything off my list, you know? I've just pushed it down the way, and then I have to remember what I have and haven't done when I pick that task up again. So I've definitely learned it's better to have like a small number of powerful but accomplishable goals.
I think it's a word.
Uh, Thank you. You knew I was thinking at that as I was saying it. Um, but I think you have to kind of prioritize those things. And but like you said, setting realistic expectations is the most powerful mindset shift, I think, for getting this done. Right?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, it's really about the mindset. Because, like what you said, like there is an unending list of things to do, right? And I could say, oh, this is a day that I'm going to get 10 of them done. And that's probably also unrealistic. But if I instead set my mind that if I get these two things done today, that's a win. When I accomplish those two things, I feel good about it. And then I could be like, oh, I got a little time. Let me try X, Y, and Z. But the exact same amount of tasks could get done, but I have a list of 10 and I get 5 done and I feel bad about it, right? So, and then that increases your stress level, and it's just like a mind play. So some things definitely got to get done, especially if you're working. But can you find a way to make it so that you do it at a certain time, or you consider a certain amount of things that must get done today and work around the rest?
I think, and there's like one more thing that I'll add to this, and then we can move on to maybe our next suggestion for this or other things that we do to try and make this work and make it manageable. But that is something you already touched on, which is when when I set a reasonable number of tasks for myself and then I'm able to accomplish them, I usually end up feeling like I have more space in my life left over for that to actually
Mhm.
do something that I enjoy, or
Mm,
like to do something to care for myself. So if I finish my tasks and I have 20 minutes before I have to go pick up the kids, maybe I take the dog on a walk, if I'm working from home that day. And that's, of course, the dog is thrilled about that. But it's also really good for me to get out and move around, be in the sunshine. I think everyone feels better after a walk. I have some of my best ideas when I'm outside, like walking, and
mhm.
I can just let my mind wander. So there's a lot of value in setting those realistic expectations in order to give yourself a little bit of space, even if it's only a few minutes, to to really engage in that, quote unquote self-care that we talk about all the time.
Totally true. I think for another suggestion, I would like to dive down this road. So you're home today because you got a sick kid. He's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be sick forever.
Mm-mm.
I was home, more time in the summertime with the kids, but that ends when they go to school. But if you're caregiving for somebody, maybe with dementia or something progressive, you don't have an end date to that, right?
Yeah.
And so it feels like it's important for your mind. I think all this kind of relates around how you think about it, to have um, I don't want to call them exits, maybe like things to look forward to.
Mm.
And that can be in a lot of different ways. So, my things to look forward to might be a trip, some travel or vacation or something like that, or the kids going back to school. Um, but it might also be, hey, my sister's going to come over and sit with my husband every other Saturday. And so I know that I'm going to get a break on that Saturday, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, or 0 things, whatever is the right thing for you. But that you have these breaks and time points, because this is a journey. It's not like a race. And so you need to be able to like pace yourself throughout that time. And the more times you can put in these breaks and these things to look forward to, the easier it is to manage the stress and the effort of trying to work and care for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Like giving yourself little rewards, no matter to look forward to, no matter how small they are. Like you look forward to taking a break at lunch, like having a little piece of chocolate, or whatever, sitting and watching your favorite show for a few minutes, or really whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like giving yourself those little rewards to look forward to throughout the day, so that you can find joy and pleasure in things. You cannot let everything become about work, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that work is, whether that is your paid employment, or whether that is caring for another person, or a combination of both of those things, which a lot of people listening to this are in that position, right? When
Mm-hmm.
we let our entire mindset, and I feel like mindset is going to be the key word of this episode today, that when you let your mindset be so consumed by just work, and you don't give yourself the opportunity to take breaks and have little pleasures and things, to your point, to look forward to, then that that idea of burnout becomes an inevitability,
Yes.
because there's nothing else there. Like that's why we burn out, is because we just see this endless grind with no light at the end of the tunnel. Like that is burnout, right? And
Yep.
you start to think,
Yep.
why am I even doing this anymore? Like what is the purpose? This isn't what my life is supposed to be like. And I think it's really easy to go down that rabbit hole for anyone. But if you give yourself those things to look forward to, those little breaks, those little rewards, little ways to find pleasure in life, it's a lot easier. Little ways to find gratitude, even, like it's way easier to avoid going down that burnout path.
Hey there, it's Emilia. Listen, I am so thrilled to have a great resource like Ask Sammy as part of the Care Lab team, and here's why. It's a game changer for aging in place because it makes it so simple. All you do is ask. Just type in your question, or even tell Sammy what the problem is, and get tailored solutions. Everything from innovative adaptive equipment to comprehensive resources. It's a great way to become more empowered, to live more independently, and to live with greater confidence. And my favorite thing about how Ask Sammy works is it's deeply rooted in dignity and practicality. So whether you're a fellow therapist, a care partner, or someone who's seeking solutions for themselves, visit www.asksammy.com. We're going to link it in the show notes so you can find it there. Start making home more accessible today. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, and that I like the idea of it being ways to find gratitude, because that might not be separate from your caregiving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, maybe it's a challenge to help somebody get in the shower and do all that, and then you're like sweating by the end, right? But if your break for the day, or your thing that you're having gratitude for, is when you guys get to sit down and have coffee and listen to music, and we're in our best states, you're still caregiving, you're still watching this person, you're still making sure they're safe, but you're enjoying time together, and in the midst of that. And so building that into your everyday, I think, is such an awesome way to think about it.
Yeah, for me, like gratitude as a healthcare provider has been my main strategy for avoiding burnout. And I understand that being a healthcare provider and being a caregiver with someone at home are really different things, and they have different demands. But, um, you know, rather than feeling like, if I've seen, you know, half a dozen patients already, maybe before lunch, and each one was difficult in its own way, rather than starting to feel like, and then knowing that I have just an endless list coming at me, right? This list is never going to end. That can feel really overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. But if I kind of flip that and say, wow, it is really such a privilege to be able to be here right now and support these people when they are not having their best day, when they are in a vulnerable situation. Like this is actually the great honor and privilege of what we get to do as healthcare providers. And like when I think about that, I feel it so deeply that it just renews all of my passion for what I do. And then it makes it really hard to feel burned out about it, because no matter what, no matter how endless that list is, at that point in time, there's one person, I'm one person, and we're working together, and I have this opportunity to bring something positive into their world. And like, that's such a gift. It's just such a gift.
And in so many ways, especially as a caregiver, there are so many gifts there. I think that's easier to recognize when it's maybe when work is not a part of it. But you have to add on the complexity of economics, and you need to work and you need to make money to care for you and this person, and you need to care for them. It adds a layer of stress. And so the other thing I would add, I think that's been helpful, or I try to come back to, because sometimes it gets pushed aside, is creating boundaries around working, right? And so if I'm working from home, you could basically be working from home all day, right? And so all day and night. And so if you're working from home because you're caring for somebody, you got to create whatever boundaries work for you, but create some. So an example of something out of the box, like working from home from 8 to 5 does not work for me. That's just not going to work if I'm watching kids, right? So I might get up earlier, do my most focused task while they are asleep for the first 2 hours. That might be those two things that I feel like I can accomplish. Let's see if I can get those accomplished before they wake up. They're unpredictable, so sometimes they wake up earlier than I expect. But for the most part, let's get the hard stuff done first, right? Because I'm a morning person, so that works for me. And then when they're up and going, like literally on my calendar, it's like, okay, we're going to make breakfast. We're going to play. We're going to do an experiment. We're going to do all this stuff. And then because we've got to spend time together, I'm going to say, hey, mommy needs to do a little bit of work. You guys get an hour of TV. I get an hour of work. And then, do it like that. And then like create these time points that make sense for what we're trying to do. And then maybe like even on an everyday basis, my after school dinner time is like no work happens then. And that is my family time. And then I might do a little bit of work after the kids go to bed, but I try to protect that after work time. And so you have to shut it off at some point and put it in its boxes. And your boxes can be organized however works for you. That's the beauty of working from home, but you just can't let the box be the whole day.
So something that you said that I really, really loved was that you kind of build into your schedule like actual quality time to be with your kids, like with your littles during the day, or to be with loved ones during the day, so that you kind of avoid, and I'm putting words in your mouth here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of avoid that sense of like mom guilt or caregiver guilt that we get when we feel like we're supposed to be with our kids, and we feel guilty when we're working because we're supposed to be caring for someone. And then when we're caring for someone, we feel guilty when we're caring for them or being with them because we're supposed to be working. It's like this unending cycle of guilt that we can get into, right? But by being intentional about planning to spend quality time with them where you're really present, that seems like it probably helps a lot to say, okay, we had this time, it was really special, it was meaningful, we were all present together, and now I need to be fully present for this other task, and you guys can go and do this other thing, or you're set up, you're taken care of, you can be more independent for a little while. Like that's that setting of intentions, which I think goes back to mindset, right? Is so powerful for avoiding some of those like just guilty all the time feelings that we can have.
Yeah, because you can feel like you're not doing anything well, right? You're like not being a great caregiver. You're also not being a great employee. And if you give yourself these boundaries and you do well within those boundaries, you can say, I did what I set out to do and I'm accomplishing what I'm supposed to be accomplishing. It's in a non-traditional way because it's not like 8 to 5, but it still got accomplished, and then you can feel less stressed out about it. I mean, that's exactly why I did that, because the kids are getting a little bit older and they're like, why are you always working? And they don't understand that this is like a weekday and I need to be at work, but I'm here with y'all, and so let's find a way that we all feel good about the time that we're spending so that it is not an additional stressor.
The other thing that's been really important for me, because obviously sometimes I can work from home, sometimes I can't work from home though, is I really rely on my social support system and my community,
Mm,
especially the age that my kids are at now, um, to help out with these
mm-hmm.
things. Like I I really rely on having a village where I can say like, hey, I'm like stuck in this meeting, or I'm stuck doing this, I'm running a little bit later. Can you please grab the kids from school for me and like take them to your house and I'll pick them up, or can you drop them, or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And vice versa. I also am happy to step in and help other people in my community and in my village when they need that help too. But it has like lightened the load on my shoulders so much to just to allow myself to be helped by other people and to help them as well. And then it has also just like really strengthened my ties to my community and the relationships that I have. Like it's just a positive overall.
Care Lab listener, I have a question for you. If someone you love was going to hire a caregiver, what qualities would you want that caregiver to have? You probably want them to be reliable, trustworthy, kind maybe, just a generally dependable good person, right? Second question, would you also want them to be trained? I'm going to guess the answer is an emphatic yes. Okay, third and final question for you. Do you think it matters who provides that training? Like, is it cool if it's just anybody? Or would you want that person providing the training to be a qualified expert? Assuming you do, in fact, love this person that needs a caregiver, you probably want the expert, right? Well, that's what Higher Standards Caregiver Training does. Higher Standards Caregiver Training provides 100% occupational therapist-led training for caregivers. Caregivers get taught everything from gold standard foundational skills for transfers and activities of daily living, all the way up to how to deal with specific diseases, injuries, and illnesses. And most importantly, they are taught these things in a practical way that enhances the participation of the person being cared for, and it protects the safety of everybody involved. Why? Because everybody deserves a higher standard. Find a course for individuals or learn about training for care organizations at higherstandardscaregivertraining.com. It is. And one thing you said is really important, I think, is you let yourself be open to having the help,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because so much about caregiving is all this duty, right? And this is your husband. And so you said till death do us part, and I'm going to care for him. And like that is duty. And that's awesome, but that's not, you can't sustain on just that. I want to be a great mom, and therefore I need to be able to make lunch and be at the school and be a business owner and keep the house clean and all the things. Like, who can do all those things really well? Literally not me.
No one.
So but you then feel like you're supposed to be able to do that. It's our duty to do that because I'm a caring mother, right? Like, the duty gets you started, but it doesn't complete the journey. And so you really, I can't even exclamation point behind what you said enough to be like, you have to find some sense of community. And you might live in a place where you don't have any family. Community and family are not the same thing. Community is having the people around you who care about you, might be family, might not, and are willing to help out. And y'all do this back and forth thing. And the things that they're capable or willing to do might not be the same things that you're capable or willing to do. And likely that's beneficial to them too, right? And so that's what community is about. But you have to be open to having that kind of help and not feeling guilty about asking for it or using it.
So this next part of the conversation, I actually want to turn towards employers. And I don't know who all is listening to this, but I think that this is an important conversation to have openly and for employers to hear too, is
Mm-hmm.
because I really believe that when we offer opportunities for flexible work, and I know there are lots of different opinions on this, especially as people get higher up into leadership roles, but I really believe that when you offer people flexible opportunities to accomplish their work and still hold them to standards of accomplishing that work at a higher level. But when you offer flexibility, it really lets you tap into talent that you wouldn't otherwise be able to tap into. And I think often, as an example, like if you, and of course, for a huge variety of reasons, you know, by and large and traditionally, if you look at who's out there in leadership roles,
Mm-hmm.
these tend to be like these tend to be men, right? These tend to be white men.
Mm-hmm.
And partly why that is, and again, there are lots of reasons behind this, but one of them, I think, is the fact that the way that our society has been structured and the traditional roles that we've had in our society, you know, is the man's job, obviously, like back in the day, to go out and make the money, and the woman's job to raise the kids and be supportive at home. And that's not the way our society works anymore. However, we have this like intrinsic kind of built-in system where it makes it so our jobs are structured, particularly like the higher up you go and the more advanced you are, it's structured in such a way that it assumes that you have someone at home who's taking care of everything for you, right?
Yeah,
Who's
that's a good
who's
point.
who's running the show at home. And so unless you have someone who's running the show for you at home, which is in and of itself actually a 24-hour a day full-time job, right?
Yep.
It makes it really, really hard to actually physically be present somewhere and be uninterrupted for those full number of hours without having a lot of additional assistance and creative solutions. You know, this is why we have daycares, this is why we have nannies, this is why people call in all kinds of extra help to get it done, however you get it done. And however you get it done, that's great. Um, but my point being that I got to in a long-winded way, as per usual, you're welcome, um, is that when we offer flexible solutions, we allow more people in our society with different kinds of lives and lifestyles and backgrounds to participate. And that brings so much more talent
Yeah, I was just about to say
into the
that.
workforce because, I mean, think how many people have not been able to do the things that they wanted to do simply because they weren't able to fit into the rigid schedule that was being demanded. Like, and think what a loss that has been, not just to that person, but for us as a society, that we've
Yep.
lost on that amazing brain power that is out there.
That's totally true. And this is not like a fringe idea. Like you're already, your employees are already caregivers. 1 in 6 people who work a full-time or part-time job are caring for an older adult or someone with a disability, whether it's a family member or a friend. So that's a lot. If you add in the kid part of it, that's 73% of workers are caring for somebody else. So that's basically everybody, right? And so like it would only make you a better place to stay and work for if you give me a little flexibility to be able to manage what's going on at home, um, and also make sure I get my tasks done. Some things are very time dependent, right? And some things do need to happen. I mean, like healthcare is open 24/7.
Yep.
You can't just be a nurse and work, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. It's just somebody got to work the weekend and the evenings and the
And you can't
overnights.
you can't just show up when it works for you. Like, that is definitely not how healthcare works. Like, you're there,
Yeah,
that's it, and I'm not accepting any phone calls. That's it.
but on the flip side, many nurses work 312s, and that gives them 4 other days in the week to try to put all the other things into so that they can be focused and present, at work when they're there because they're there all day. And that's a level of flexibility, right? Like that's a thing we do in healthcare all the time. It's not a thing that we do in office places very often.
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking about it outside the box and making sure that the things are getting covered, but maybe in a slightly different way, gives everybody a little more flexibility. I was talking to another business owner who's considering opening another line of business in home care.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, Great. We need better in-home care providers. However, the biggest problem is
Send her my
keeping the
way. Send her my way. Higher Standards Caregiver Training would love to take care of their caregiver training needs.
I definitely would do that. If they decide to do that. But I was like, the primary problem is it's hard to keep workers. There's not enough people who are willing to do this job. They don't get paid enough to do the job. So as soon as there's an opportunity to work for a little bit more, they're going to go somewhere else. And who can blame them? Caregiving is hard. This is why we even talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, I was thinking about opening a daycare and letting it be free to the people who are working for us, and then, be a daycare for the community too. And I was like, if I had an employer that gave me free daycare, I would never leave that job. Like,
Yeah.
point blank, period. I just never leave that job because it's such a big barrier. And like, that's not creating flexible work hours. That's just giving an additional benefit that helps me have my mind at ease and know that my kid is safe and at a place that's affordable because it's free, or even very low and subsidized, and now I can do my work, right?
Yeah.
And so there's lots of ways to think outside the box is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you brought that up, actually, because you're right. Like, different businesses with different business models have different needs of their employees, and we can't pretend like everyone can be in a remote work, everyone works from home, everything's fine.
Right.
Like, that's not the reality of the situation in lots and lots of businesses. And also, of course, for people who can work, regular 9 to 5 in an office, and they have someone who's at home caring for all of their stuff, then that's great too. There's like no shade on how anyone's going to get it done.
Right.
But it's about maybe thinking about flexibility in terms of the options that we're providing to people, because you're right, having a daycare on site or having a daycare that's free for employees doesn't necessarily make that workday more flexible, but it is a form of social support, right? So are we being flexible? Are we providing social support? How are we making it so that our employees can really show up and be present and do their jobs? And like you said, I think there's a lot of ways to think about that. And I think that employers are beginning to think about these things more. But if I can help encourage, or if Care Lab can help encourage that thinking in any way, like, I'm all about it, because again, I just have to think, how much talent have we lost because people can't care for who they need to care for at the same time that they are doing a great job and earning a living. And that problem is not going to get smaller. That problem is going to get bigger.
Exactly.
Like a lot bigger. So we got to figure it out.
I don't know. I guess we gave a few solutions and a few calls to action, so that worked for me.
Yeah. Like I said, well, I mean, like I said in the beginning, there's not like a clear solution to a lot of the things that we talk about on Care Lab, right? Like, we can't pretend like this is easy stuff, and if you just do X, Y, Z, or if you hit this easy button, that it's all going to be worked out. That's just not the case. That's not how life is. But we can think about the choices that we make and the control that we do have, and trying to advocate for things. I really believe that no matter what the situation is, we can always make it better. There might not be a perfect solution. There might not be an easy solution, but we can do things to improve the situation. And so let's do those things.
That's a very OT answer. That's why I love being OT. We always think we can make something a little bit better.
You can.
And you know what, listener, you can make something a little bit better. If you've made it to the end of this episode, you should like and subscribe. You should write us a review, and you should also leave a comment and let us know what you'd like us to talk about next, so we can make something a little bit better for you.
And don't forget to guess how you think I use power tools, needle and thread, and an umbrella to improve my closet recording situation here. I will say, if you get it right, I will send you a prize.
I'm trying to see what this prize is.
Yeah, well, I mean, me too. I'll figure it out. I'm excited to see what this prize is also. I don't think anyone's going to get it, but surprise me. That would be amazing.
That would be. All right, we'll see y'all next time on Care Lab.
Bye.
This is the Whole Care Network. helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.